Hey guys, this week we are going to be talking about the idea of visual storytelling through film and kind of the basics of what go into creating appealing and aesthetically um, beautiful cinematography. There are classes and degrees and all sorts of things that go into this. This is a very simple rendition of it, but it's also one of my favorite things to talk about because I love studying film. I study fandom. Fandom ties into this. So this is one of my favorite lectures. But again, it's going to be a very simple explanation of how film uses different things to create these beautiful scenes. Now, to begin with, there are a few basic film terms that you should probably know about. Some of them we've talked a little bit about, some of them are new. The first one is a shot. And this could be set as a shot or a camera shot. Basically, it's any single uninterrupted piece of filmed action. Now, when you put different shots together, you get sequences. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But basically, it all starts with one shot. And when you put your storyboards together, like you did last week, each field that you filled in was a shot. And so from there, you start thinking about what's going to go into that shot. And sometimes you think, is the shot going to be a close up? Is it going to be a long shot, a wide shot? All these different things go into thinking about that. You also have camera angles. So it's not just about like the uninterrupted action, but the angle at which you shoot it. And we've talked a little bit about camera angle before, but this really plays into making your audience feel a certain way. Camera movement also goes into that, and it's how the camera moves about to help tell the story. Is it through the perspective of your character? Is it to create a better understanding of your environment? Lots of different things go into that. So, these are three terms that I want you to keep in mind as we go into this lecture. So, this kind of breaks it down a little bit. You have your different angles. Eye level is really just what you are seeing or what your character is seeing. It's a very basic shot. Then you have the Dutch angle, which is shooting up or down to kind of give you a sense of, um, you know, impending danger or power or different things. You have low angle, high angle. Again, it's a power dynamic. It also allows you to see from different perspectives. And then you have over the shoulder. And this is usually done when two characters are talking to each other and you switch back and forth. Angle really creates a power dynamic in how your characters are not only seen by others, but also within their environment itself. It also allows you to be creative with showing everything in the scene. Then, of course, you have your shot size. So you have your extreme close up or your close up. This is to really show emotion. The closer you are, the more emotion you're trying to um, portray on the screen. Then you have a medium shot. Medium shots are great for interviews. A long shot or an extreme shot is really to show you what the environment is like. Then, if you have multiple people or multiple things in a shot, it can be a single, a two, or a three shot. And then you have a POV, which is from the point of view of your character and what they're seeing. Again, very basic um, idea of what this is. Then you have motion. There are lots of different camera movements or motions that go into it. Some of the more popular ones are like a 360 barrel turn, a zoom in and out, a pan or a tilt. So a pan goes horizontally, a tilt goes up and down. Then you have a dolly or a crane. A dolly or a truck will move with something. So a truck will go sideways and a dolly will go forward and backward. A crane will come in on equipment. And then you have random camera movement, and this is things like the Blair Witch Project or off the shoulder shooting for action scenes. Here's another way to look at this with camera angles. So you have the bird's eye aerial view, which is shooting straight down. Overhead is a little bit closer. You have a high angle that's shooting down on somebody. Eye level, POV is shooting from what they're seeing. Low angle is shooting up. And then you have worm's eye, which is shooting from the very bottom. So it's like the opposite of bird's eye. This is also another way to look at shots for when you're looking at people. So you have the extreme close up, which is usually like the eyes and the nose. A close up is from the shoulders up, medium close up, medium shot. A cowboy shot is right above the knees. Medium full shot is at the knees. And then you have a full shot is, of course, the entire body. Now, all of this goes together because when you're choosing the different shots or movements or angles, it's really to help tell your story and to really make your audience feel a certain way, right? Because they are the ones viewing it from that angle or they're seeing that emotion from that extreme close up. And so it's not just, oh, we're going to do an extreme close up just for the heck of it. No, there's a lot of thought that goes behind that. And we've talked a lot about why you choose these kinds of things. And so this is kind of putting it all together into a visual aspect that most of you know, which is cinema. Again, here are some of the movements that you might see. A dolly goes front and backwards, a truck goes from side to side, tilt up and down. A pedestal is like a tilt, except the camera actually moves from one area to the other, kind of like an elevator. A pan is going from side to side without actually moving with the subject, and then a roll is that like 360. This is also what a crane or a jib looks like. Um, it's what, we get football views from, or you get those like aerial views of cinema. We also have drone shots, which is a whole other element that goes into filmmaking. So when you are deciding how you're going to put together a shot and what it means and why you're doing it, to tell the story or to tell your character's point of view or to make your audience feel a certain way, one thing you have to think about is the term the mise en scene. And this is a French fancy word for basically putting on stage. When you are in theater, what that means is whatever is on the stage that the audience can see. And then you have backstage, right? Or the sides or the wings where people can change costumes or they have props or they can exit from one side or the other. When you put that into film, it's basically what you can see with the camera. So everything on the screen. Um, But really, it boils down to five different things: the position of the actors, the set or the locale, any props that are there, the lighting, and then the composition of the shot itself. And remember, when you think about composition, it's, the framing, the rule of thirds, what, um, leading lines, those kinds of things that we talked about in the first couple of weeks. A few other things that you should think about when you are putting the mise en scene together is that it's not just one scene. Yes, one scene can have a huge impact, but it's really the sequence or a series of scenes that really make the film, right? Because without an entirety of a sequence, you don't have film, you just have a scene. And so sequences are usually connected by location or a certain particular time within the film. And then you put those sequences together in what is called an act. And an act comes from theater, the term comes from theater, because you usually have a first act and a second act, and then there's intermission in between them. Um, what happens is we usually have a first, second, and third act in cinema. And You may remember that we looked at this at the beginning of class, the structure of a story, right? And how visual really can go into that. And the same goes for cinema. You have act one, which is the beginning, the inciting of the incident, second thought, a climax, obstacle, obstacle, midpoint, which is usually act two, obstacle, disaster, crisis, climax of act two, and then act three is the descending action, the resolution, wrapping it up in the end. So again, this is a very, very short explanation of cinema and the different things that go into it and why we use, different shots and angles and everything to put in scenes and then sequences and then acts. But this is kind of how you start taking all the elements that we've talked about in this class and you put them together to create visual stories. And that's what you're doing for your projects, whether it be photography or video or whatever. You're still having to put all these elements into a sequence of sorts to create one story. Now, the last thing I want to show you is I like to show different ways of explaining things. And the movement and shot sequences can sometimes be a little overwhelming. And so I wanted to show you those um, features and elements using something that a lot of people are aware of, which is Marvel films. So really like this video that explains it. And then once this video is done, that'll be the end of our lecture.
As film analysts and potentially even one day filmmakers, one of the first things that we need to start to understand is that the camera is a toolbox full of different techniques and tricks that we can do to help us make meaning. That's why it's one of the first things I teach any of my media classes. How to identify a camera shot very specifically and work out why it was chosen. It's how we know this character is deceitful.
Low key.
This character is angry. This guy is badass.
I am Iron Man.
So the first step then is to learn the names of every single tool in this camera work toolkit. So in this video, I'm going to be using the complete Marvel catalog to outline every single shot type that filmmakers can use. Before we begin, if you're new here and you like the content, perhaps if you're a film student or a media student, consider subscribing to keep up to date with all of my latest videos. So let's start as far away from the subject as possible with the wide shot. The main purpose of this shot is to provide context, showing our subject within their surroundings so that the audience can get their bearings as a scene plays out. For this reason, the wide shot is often associated with establishing shots at the start of a scene, but as you'll see with all of the shots in this video, that's not its only purpose. It can also be used like this in Spider-Man Homecoming to show the physical and emotional space between two characters who aren't seeing eye to eye.
Previously on Peter Screws the Pooch, I tell you to stay away from this.
Or like they do a few times in this scene from Endgame to juxtapose something huge with an individual character to show the overwhelming odds that they face. Next, we move in a little bit closer and we get the full shot. We're closing in now and we can see all of our subject within their context without any cropping. This is useful when we need to see more than one subject in the frame, or when the environment provides some of the visual information being relayed. If we look at one of the funniest moments from the entire MCU catalogue, we can see how the punchline is actually reliant on the full shot.
And I will not be bullied by that.
Now if we pull in a little bit closer, we have the medium full shot. And this is where we start to single out a particular character in the frame that we want the audience to focus on, something that is harder to do in a full or a wide shot. One of the best examples we can look at is the prison break scene in Guardians of the Galaxy, where the mid-long shot framing means that we are directed to look at the center of the frame, because the two main subjects are looking at each other. And in doing so, we can't help but notice Groot take the initiative, starting the escape in the background.
Once we have it, we gotta move quickly. So you definitely need to get that last.
So here we still have environmental information, but we're far more focused on the people within it. Next, we have the previously mentioned cowboy shot, which to all intents and purposes is the same as a medium long shot, but frames the subject to just below the hips. Think of where you would have to frame a shot to include a cowboy's holster and you get the idea. This is a very strong, powerful shot, which is often reserved for heroic poses. In Marvel films, it's probably best seen everywhere. Now we get to the biggie, or the midi technically, the medium shot. It's probably the most common shot you'll see in film. And I've been thinking a lot about why this is, and I think I've got an answer. The medium shot frames the subject from waist to the top of the head, very often in a 30 to 50mm lens, which, when you think about it, is very similar to how we experience interactions with people in the real world. It's close enough to be able to read lots of information on the person we're looking at, but not so close to be uncomfortable. For this reason, it's the go-to shot for dialogue scenes like this.
I did listen, kid.
Who do you think called the FBI, huh?
It's also why I choose to film these videos in a medium shot. It's not intimidating, it's not too close, it's comfortable. Move in a little bit closer, and we've got the medium close-up. This typically frames the shoulders and face of the subject, and I don't know if you've noticed, but each time we move in, we are being directed more and more to look at a specific part of the frame. So with this shot, we can see far more information on the characters' faces, such as the clear, unimpressed look on Valkyrie's face.
That I want to be on the team. Has it got a name?
Yeah, it's called the Revenges.
The Revenges?
One step closer and we have the close-up, which shows the whole subject's head. I can't really think of a better scene to demonstrate this than my favorite clip from Captain America: Winter Soldier. The use of the close-up in the moments leading up to the claustrophobic lift fight do two things. First, we know something's not right because of the information we're getting from Captain's face. Something only achieved by restricting the view of everything else other than this. Furthermore, it already establishes the close quarters claustrophobic setting in preparation for the fight scene itself. And finally, we come to the extreme close-up, which is when we abstract the close-up and get really up close and personal. This can be to show intimacy, like this kiss scene from Thor, or the compactness of being in Iron Man's suit like this.
Me?
Or to make sure that the audience doesn't miss a really important detail like this. Needless to say, you're probably going to see an extreme close-up reserved for moments of intense emotion. So there you have it. That is the terminology that you need to learn to describe almost any shot in any film. There's only really those few. Now notice that I've not really talked about camera movements and composition. I'll save those for another video. But learning to speak this lingo is vital if you're going to become a film analyst or you want to describe how you want a shot to look to your DP. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed if you haven't already. If you're looking for where to go next, I'd recommend checking out my video on how to read cinematography, which you can watch here. Or if you're interested in how specific filmmakers use the camera uniquely, check out my video on auteur theory right here. Until next time.